Well, how are you getting on? How's she cutting, lads? So today's video is a little bit different than the last two. I've moved my setup, as you can see, and the reason I did that is every time I went to film an editing tutorial, I had to move this desk out into the center of the room because I wanted the depth of the room. That seemed to be the best depth at the time, but I played around with the room a little bit more and I found this angle. This is where I usually work, this is my setup, and now because I have a setup here with the camera, it'll be a lot easier output videos because like to have to move the desk out every time and set up different lighting setups and everything, it took a lot of effort, and I like to keep things easy, and if things are easy for me, I'm more likely to do it. So I was debating on what's the next video that I could maybe put up that would teach you something, and something that I struggled with along my filmmaking career was lighting. And it's something that I really wish I put the effort into at the start, because I suppose I felt like afterwards down the line it felt like I had to put a lot more effort in and I didn't understand it as well as I thought, and I had went through like 5 years of film school. So for me it was like, you know, you kind of begin to doubt yourself. You're like, oh, you know, can I understand this? Am I cut out for this? You know, I might be good at the camera movement, but can I really do the lighting end of things? And I just felt like there was a few things that weren't really explained to me properly. And I think if you can get the hang of what I'm about to talk about, I think you'll step up your game for sure. So with lighting, the most important thing is depth, in my opinion. So if you can light the image with depth, like down the image and across the image, you're off to a great start. If you look at my image here, you'll notice that I have a kind of a dark foreground that goes into a light that then goes into a dark shadow, and then it goes to light, and that contrast, that separation goes across the image, and that's very pleasing to the eye. And again, it's the same if you look across the whole image itself. You know, my foreground's dark but my background's bright, and it's that contrast, you know, between vertical and horizontal on the image. That's what's really pleasing to the eye. So how did I get to this lighting setup? And I basically wanted something relaxed. I wanted something that would suit the room, that would be in line with what you would see in a room like this. I had a lamp back there, and that kind of inspired me as the practical. So there is no plug back there, so I couldn't plug that in without running extension leads. I didn't want to be doing that. I wanted to keep it easy, as I said. Even if there was a bulb in that light, it wouldn't have been strong enough. So what I did is I have a Falcon Eyes, it's a little mini LED light, and what I did is I just popped it up there. It was magnetic, and I just put 2 extra clamps in there to secure it on. I put it full blast at 2500 Kelvin, and it looks amazing. Like, you know, it's the way the light's coming out at the bottom but also at the top, it even creates even more depth into the L of the room. So, you know, I really like that. And then I was like, perfect, that's a practical, that sets up the feel for the rest. So I was thinking, you know, what next could I light? And then that brought me on to this desk light here. I don't have a desk light here, but what I've done here is I've just put a little tube and I set that to 3200 Kelvin. Because it's out of frame, it's fine. People are just going to assume that's a desk light. And what it does then is it lights my face from this area. And then what I've done then is I've put my Aputure Cobb 60X, and I've got it with a softbox and it's diffused. What I've done then as well is I put the egg crate grid on the softbox because I'm dealing with a lot of white walls, and if I didn't have the egg crate, there'd be a lot more spillage and it would be harder to control the light. So by having that egg crate, like, it really creates the light towards me. Now I don't have the intensity much on that light either because, again, white walls, it's a strong light. I didn't want to overpower it, so I've got the intensity quite low on it. I was faced with a decision then of, do I match that light to the practical in the back? Because the room is quite orange then, I didn't really like how the orange was casting in my face. So what I did is I set that to daylight, so the contrast then between, just to have a little bit of a cool light, and then it just contrasts nicely with the background, because what it's simulating for me then is the, you know, the laptop light. And then my final light is, I have just a little Aputure tube down here, and what that is to do is it's just to create a little bit of fill in this little area, just to bring up the levels a small bit, and then also it gives me just a slight, you know, it gives me a slight rim light so it would separate me. So there's one very important lesson that I want to kind of touch on, and it's something that took me a long time to figure out myself, and I felt like if someone explained this to me in college or, you know, up along, I suppose it would have just cleared up a lot of things for me. And I never really understood how to get the most out of my white balance. I would like light scenes, obviously very badly at the time, but like I would light it and then I would set my white balance to the temperature of the light, and I was like, this looks okay, but it doesn't look like, you know, nice and like creative, and I was, you know, I could never pull the colors out of, you know, out of what I wanted, and I always like thought what's the correct white balance, you know, to get the, you know, the image as best looking as possible. And the thing is, I needed to look at it from a different angle. So I was like looking at, you know, if a light is tungsten at 3200 Kelvin, I would set my camera to 3200 Kelvin. What it was doing is it was just, you know, getting the white balance, and then it was just producing an image that was just more naturalistic to, you know, what we see in real life, but it didn't look as good as it could. So what really was a game changer for me when it came to lighting was understanding, you know, color temperature. And it was basically how white balance works in a camera and how to use it within the camera. So for example, if you have a light and it's set to daylight and it's at 5600, and then you have a tungsten light and it's set to 3200, I was like, well, what's the right, you know, white balance? If I set it wrong, it's going to be, you know, incorrect, and I'm not going to get the best image. And I just didn't understand that setting the white balance in camera will offset the temperature of the lights around you. So for example, if you have a light that's 3200 Kelvin tungsten, this color, orange, and you have your camera set to 5600, what's going to happen is that's going to seem really, really orange and like yellowish, and like you've probably seen it where that's happened to you with your camera before. And the same thing if you're outside and it's 5600 Kelvin and your camera set to 3200 Kelvin, well, what's going to happen then is the 56 is going to appear way more blue, and all it is that your camera is set to the temperature, but the temperature of the light is on the scale. So if the camera is set lower, the light is going to appear more extreme in a way. Yeah, that's what did it for me. I was like, okay, I understand white balance. I know how to creatively use white balance now to, you know, get the most out of my lights. So I was on a shoot a few years back then, and like setting up a scene, and it was quite, you know, it had moonlight and it had tungsten, and I set the camera to 4:4, and what it did is it brought the blues out lovely, and it brought the oranges out nice and warm, and that contrast between, you know, the blue and the orange, the teal and orange look, and it was just, it looked perfect. And it was in that moment I was like, yes, this all makes sense now. I know how to use this creatively. So that's what I've done in this scene right here. I've set my color balance at 4400. So what it's after doing then is it's after giving a little bit more warmth to the image, but it's also kind of cooled off this 5600 Kelvin that's coming off onto my face. The other reason I put this at 5600 as well is I have a laptop here, so, you know, it could simulate the light, you know, coming off the laptop screen to, you know, just be that little bit more cooler. I'm just going to show you what it's like, what the room is like without the lights, and what happens when you turn each one on. And I'm going to do that with the Sidus Link app, and the Sidus Link app is so handy. It's for aperture lights, and you can just literally turn on, turn off your lights, and it's a game changer, especially in a setup like this. You can just pop them on, pop it off. So let's build this scene up, and let's just see the difference between, like, you know, a generic ugly looking room that when you creatively light it and then you creatively use your white balance in camera, you know, what you can make it look like. So here's the generic room lights, the, you know, house lights. It's, you know, it doesn't look good. So what we're going to do first is we're going to get rid of all the house lights. We're going to turn every one of them off, and then we're going to light up that practical in the back. All house lights are off. So now that the practical in the background's added, we're going to add our desk lamp. Ooh, look at that. So it's starting to take shape a bit now. So then what we'll do then is we'll add our little bit of fill in the center. And look at that, just brighten the levels a bit more. And then we're going to add our Cobb 60X. There it is, it's lit. I like it, I'm happy with it. And yeah, it just looks great overall. So you can see the difference now in this image before the, you know, with the house lights. It's just, you know, it's three, what is it, 1, 2, 3, it's 4 lights. And I understand for starting out filmmakers, these lights aren't cheap, but in the grand scheme of things, they really are cheap. I think I said it in one of my last videos that, like, these lights are kind of pricey, but like when you actually break it down, they're probably one of the best investments you could ever make. Like, if I could go back and start my whole filmmaking journey again, the first thing I would invest in is lights, because to be honest, you'll always have a use for them. They don't go out of style. You learn so much more. Like, I wish that was the first thing I put time and effort into understanding. If you learn how to light an image, that's where you're gonna, like, pull the emotion out. You know, every day is a school day, as they say. So hopefully someone learned something from this. Hit that subscribe button if you've enjoyed this content. It really does mean the world to me. And we'll see you in the next one, lads. Thanks a million and good luck.